Pelosi versus Mnuchin. The special we debuted yesterday, which was a blockbuster, is back now today, in which we detail really what is going on, what went on, and why a false narrative was portrayed by both sides throughout this entire pandemic, even up to today, even yesterday, and possibly even after the time of this recording. There's a lot of twists and turns, and there's a lot of false narratives, but we're getting to the facts. And this is Afternoon's LALATE. Hey, good afternoon. This is a special edition of Mnuchin versus Pelosi in the time slot where rent is. I'll also be going over some rent details for you as well. But I have shocking details about where this has really gone and where it is headed in the last 24 hours, in the last week, and in the last 3 months. Let me tell you where we are today. Where we are today is Nancy Pelosi has been feeding a lot of fake reports to news reporters and a lot of false narratives. And on the other side, Steve Mnuchin has been using a lot of superlatives and words of optimism when the situation was not optimistic. And that has really sort of tugged on the wishes and whims of people. And it's amid a desire by the American public to have true facts and not just to have a lot of conjecture. Let me explain to you what were the offers, where are the offers, where they're going, and what's happening. First of all, you have two bodies of Congress. You have the House, where Nancy is, and the Senate, where Mitch McConnell is. For a bill to become law, it has to be introduced in one of the houses. It can be introduced in either of them, the Senate or the House, and then it has to be passed in both the Senate and the House, and then signed by the President. In the case of these negotiations, for reasons no one really knows, and I'll never know the answer myself as well, the Republicans delegated Steve Mnuchin to negotiate, and the Democrats delegated Nancy Pelosi to negotiate. And so this has become a two-person negotiation path. Yeah, Mark Meadows was in there initially, and she had a real problem with him, and she basically said, don't bring him back to the table. The reason why I bring that up is this is critical. Ultimately, she had a personality strife with a key figure you cannot have a strife with. It's not Mark Meadows, it's Mitch McConnell. If you don't have Mitch McConnell on board with what you're doing, then why are you doing anything at all? And I got to tell you, we all slammed Mitch McConnell back in June. We all slammed him back in July. And we certainly slammed him in some parts of the month of August. But we also understand that if you need a bill passed, you have to have the person agreeing to it who's part of the path. What I'm referring to is the following. The bill has to pass the Senate, despite whatever Mnuchin and Meadows and Pelosi do. And if you say, I don't want Mitch part of the negotiations, it's first of all a personality hit against Mitch. Not that I'm vouching for his personality. But ultimately, if you don't have him involved with the negotiations, he will ultimately say, hey, nice that you've been chatting, but I have nothing to do with what you're doing and I'm not going to allow it. And that's what he said over the last 24 hours. Virtually every news report has talked about Pelosi and Mnuchin, and then at the very end of the last sentence of the paragraph, the last sentence of the article, they say, oh, and by the way, McConnell says, I'm not going to do this. It's like, okay, I just read 10 paragraphs of an article, and I get to the last sentence. So I'm like, well, why did I just read the last 10 paragraphs? And that's what you sort of have to feel here. Let me explain how this is such an important factor and why it could still change later today. This recording's made at about 1 o'clock Pacific Standard Time now for a show that's going to go up at about 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, 8 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. And I understand things may change by then, but this is the situation currently now. Mitch McConnell has made clear, I've made clear, the White House has made clear, Republicans have made clear, Democrats have made clear, and the problem solvers, no one's going to support in the Senate a bill over $2 trillion. It's been made clear since July. So what has Nancy Pelosi done? Nothing. I'm not being exaggerated, nothing. So the same offer she had in July is the same offer she has today. She's always been at $2.2 trillion. She just didn't have it to paper in July. She had in paper 3.4. She just put her offer from July into paper this week and made it look new. It's not new. It's the same thing she's had since July. And so when she introduced 2.2, we immediately said, well, of course that's going to go nowhere. I told you this last week. That's where the purple power stepped up last week and said, it's not going to go anywhere. Well, Mitch McConnell yesterday came out and said, this is just silliness. She is not taking the situation seriously. And today, the White House press secretary said the exact same adjective or adverb. Nancy Pelosi is not taking the situation seriously. That what she's doing is just repeating the same thing she's repeated just since July, which means you just don't want to get a deal. She's not negotiating. She's just repeating the same thing over and over and over and over again from July all the way now to October 1st. So could there still be a chance that something could pass in the Senate? There's only one possibility, and I got to tell you, this is now opinion. My opinion is this: I don't see this ever happening. But there is some Republicans that have gone on the record, this is fact, in the last 24 hours that say maybe we can get a few Republicans to vote for a bill over $2 trillion and then have all the Democrats in the Senate jump party line and vote in favor of the bill and still pass it with some Republicans voting against it. I just don't see that happening. It's like, okay, maybe I'll have 50 people break Olympic records tomorrow. I mean, yeah, maybe they will, but maybe they won't. It's a lot of conjecture. It's a claim in which you're guessing that you can get enough Republicans in the Senate to go against Mitch, to go above $2 trillion, and to do something the president doesn't even want. I just don't see that happening. So what we have currently is Mnuchin at 1.6, 1.7. It really doesn't matter. I mean, I reported 1.5, and people are like, oh no, he's at 1.6.7. I'm like, who cares? It's still not 2.2 or 2.1. I mean, if Steve Mnuchin was at 2, we would all sort of like, we all do that. Now, that was a report I started mornings at LALATE with that was from Politico, which is source data. It's not fact. It's a source that said Mnuchin offered an escalator provision that would raise the bill from 1.5 or 6 to 2 for new funds as needed going forward. Now, let me tell you, the remainder of that article was Nancy Pelosi apparently told her caucus yesterday. Nancy Pelosi apparently is going to do this later today. Nancy Pelosi is apparently going to do this today. And Nancy Pelosi apparently said this. Do you see a sort of trend in that article? Everything was about what Nancy Pelosi is doing, and there was not any sources from Steve Mnuchin. But then yet it was saying, Steve Mnuchin did this for us. Do you believe it? No. Do I believe it? No. That's how you sort of read source data, where the sources are all slanted one direction, and the remainder of the quotes are all in favor of a particular person. It's showing it's very slanted. Not to say it's slanted in favor of Nancy Pelosi, but it's seeming as though all the sources were Nancy Pelosi sources. None of them were Steve Mnuchin sources. So do I believe there was an escalated provision of 1.7 to 2? No. As I said on Mornings LA, if that's true, if that's categorically true, we have a deal. I just don't see that happen. I just don't believe that actually happened. But I've been wrong before. I can be wrong again. Again, my opinion is I don't believe that there was an escalated provision. Now, what's going to happen tonight? What's going to happen tomorrow? What's going to happen this weekend? Well, tonight, Nancy Pelosi will basically do a ceremonial, ineffective. It serves no functional purpose whatsoever except to create nice optics for a publicity commercial. I'm not being facetious, actually. It would probably be her political commercial of going to a floor vote in the House of Representatives for her $2.2 trillion bill and passing it. Will all Democrats vote in favor of the bill? I hope not. I hope that some of the problem solvers, I hope some of the blue dogs, I hope some of the new Democrat coalition that have been very vocal and have supported the purple power and supported the efforts of not doing what she's doing does not vote in favor of the bill tonight. We shall see. But when that vote comes to a fruition, I want you to understand, I would be so ecstatic tonight. I would be categorically ecstatic if I got no comments tonight that said, it passed the House, because that means absolutely nothing. And that means you've watched my videos. That means you're informed that passing the House means absolutely, categorically nothing. because I understand there's going to be some people out there who are going to say, let's go out and get a drink and get drunk because it passed the House. Congratulations. This is the best day since we won World War II. No, that means absolutely nothing it passed the House. It means absolutely categorically nothing. So what's going to go forward with Mnuchin? It's very likely that Mnuchin and Pelosi will continue to talk and saying we're continuing to talk and we will still keep doors open. At this point, we really don't care. What is Mnuchin going to think about the situation? This is my opinion. Mnuchin sees these press releases that are coming out. Pelosi sought assurances of her members that if talks do break down, the party is closer to the inauguration of Democratic presidential nominee Joe Biden, who helped deliver expansive relief early next year. We have our moment, Pelosi said in a call to people who dialed in last night, and that ultimately she's going to say that ultimately she said to her caucus, whatever, it's 12 people that called in yesterday, if Steve doesn't do what I want, then we're going to go have a big celebration when Biden wins and we'll give you stimulus next year. That has a lot of insidious meanings to it. And here comes my opinion. You asked me for my opinion. And I said I had an opinion about that remark, and I've said it over the last 3 videos, and I haven't done it until now. I got to tell you, that's pretty disgusting. It's really, really horrifically disgusting that you are using relief to people during the middle of a pandemic that's killing lives, that's making people homeless, and that if you are homeless, you could contract COVID-19 and die as well. You're using that as a way to anchor someone to the presidency. That's really disgusting. It really is. And I got to say this from another level. There's a lot of people that like Joe Biden and a lot of people that want Joe Biden to be president. And I don't think they would ever subscribe to you using such a disgusting tactics to get someone like that elected. It's as though you're tainting someone who's had in their minds, a very clear path to become next president, but you're trying to push him in with a very, very disgusting political tactic. It's really awful. I really wished that someone in this presidential run, either Harris or Biden, would say, I wish there was a stimulus package passed now. Americans need stimulus package now. They have not. And I got it that you heard this debate 24, 48 hours ago, and no one talked about stimulus, no one talked about relief, no one talked about economics, no one talked about stimulus checks, no one talked about FPUC. All they talked about was their children, who was drunk and who had prior addiction problems. No one talked about your relief. And I get that. And that's what makes the situation worse. That it looks like no one's really even acknowledging your existence. And it's compounded with the fact that a bunch of very rich executives from the airline industry flew to Washington, and clearly in first class, had a meeting with Meadows, had a meeting with the president, and are getting a nice relief potentially for themselves. But the American citizens have sort of are invisible to these people. It's very disgusting. Steve Mnuchin equally is to blame. He's very equally to blame because throughout this entire process, Steve Mnuchin has not been truthful to us multiple times, as is the case for Meadows. We were told multiple times by Mnuchin, on the record, this is fact, this is not a source, that we'll have a deal by Friday. We're going to get a deal by Friday. This was in July. We'll get a deal by Friday in August. Meadows, we're going to have it voted upon and approved by the end of the week, and we'll have a law the next week. This was Meadows in early September. We were told all these things every single time as though it's fact, when it was really opinion by these people. And it wasn't even opinion. It was rose-colored glasses or almost propaganda. It was not true. What's important to understand is that to have something passed, you have to agreement with all the parties. And no one was consulting with one of the most critical parties on the path, which you may dislike or like, but you still have to consult with them, and that's Mitch McConnell. And so throughout this Pelosi-Mnuchin game, there was one critical cog, one critical factor that everyone kept on ignoring, as though that factor was fine. And that factor was the Senate. The Senate does not want a $2 trillion bill. The Senate does not want a $1.9 trillion bill. And ultimately, how many times was the White House, was Mnuchin, was Meadows going to tell us that I'm confident? Confident about what? There was a series of news reports yesterday, and these are fact, that Mnuchin is not particularly, how would you say it? I don't want to say the word popular, but is not to the mat and hard to the bone with members of Congress. He's not. He's a Wall Street guy. He's not a former congressional person. He came from Wall Street. His father was on Wall Street. He's not a former elected official. So he doesn't hang out with these people. Meadows is a former congressman. And so when you're sitting in a private place talking with Nancy Pelosi about something that you want people in the Congress who are not involved in negotiations to do, don't you think that's a little weird? You got to understand, the first stimulus package was passed by a lot of people, and there was a lot of congressmen involved. There was a lot of House and a lot of Senate people involved, and there was some cabinet members involved. But it was not this one guy named Mnuchin from a very, isolated environment negotiating with a woman who's the epitome of isolation, saying we're going to do this and that everyone around us is going to agree with us. As soon as I heard this, when I moved into the space, I said, this is going to be problems. I think it's safe to say we're very far apart, said McConnell yesterday. When he said that comment, the stock market which had been up based on Mnuchin's false hopes, I'd say, looks good. It looks really great. It looks wonderful. McConnell said that the market went the other direction because McConnell's the department that gets the person who gets things pushing or going in the Senate. Then he says, well, they're very, very far apart on a deal. It was like it's Candy Burris at a reunion where Nene and Portia are arguing, and Candy's like, hey, you just don't see eye to eye, folks. And we're like, thank you for seeing what they're thinking. This was Mnuchin and Pelosi come to say, we're so good, we're doing great, we're doing great. And McConnell's like, you're not doing great, you're very far apart, you have no deal. What are you doing with people? Why are you tugging on people's wishes? And then came this later yesterday. The latest bill from the Speaker is no more serious than any of her political stunts going back for months. If they continue to refuse to get serious, the American families will continue to hurt. Well, the first sentence was absolutely correct to the bone. It was a stunt. It has gone on for months, and it was no different than a previous offer. She's had the same offer since July, and she's had a lot of stunts. He also said that she's had political sort of fiasco bits, and we all know that. Chasing the postman, everything has been a political scandal that she's tried to invent every single month, and they are stunts. They are publicity games. Ultimately, you didn't see a bill from her. All you had was the same thing she's pushed for 2 months. The president, the same article said, in Politico said, the president will lean on Republicans to get above $1 trillion, but he's not going to lean on them to get over $2 trillion, said the same article. Steny Hoyer, Democrat of Maryland, House Majority Leader, says we'll have to see. We'll have to have an agreement. We're going to pass that agreement. Then we're going to, if we have that agreement, we're going to pass that agreement. Then we're done until after the election. It's hard to say when we're going to leave. Again, that's a crazy remark, Steny. If we have an agreement between Steve and Nancy, then we're going to pass that agreement. Where? In the House? Well, then it's going to die. No one's going to approve a $2 trillion deal. It's hard to say when we're going to leave. It's not hard to say when you're going to leave. You already said when you're going to leave. You're going to leave as soon as, as soon as much of nothing happens. As we start the afternoon, there's going to be twists and turns, and I'll certainly update that for you as well. Remembering this recording is done at about 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and, it's about 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, and so things could certainly develop, and when they do, I will update you accordingly. But the important thing to understand is that Evening to LALATE is recorded after everyone's done talking, after everyone's gone home. They're going to have the $12 ice cream. I'm here, and you're here, and we're all going to get through this together. So go to the Funds channel, subscribe, and really become part of this community where everyone is trying to get through this together, and we will. And also like this video, because who really cares about you as much as I do. Coming up next is the wonders of Evenings at LALATE. As always, stay informed, stay smiling, stay focused, and stay at LA.